Coravanta coverage of big news about Blake Lively. Hollywood has humiliated Blake Lively once again, and this time there's no clever spin, no carefully timed Instagram post, no smirking red carpet charm offensive that can save her. What unfolded at the 2025 Time 100 Gala wasn't a celebration, it was a public unraveling. A slow, painful exposure of just how far her manufactured image has drifted from reality and how little patience the industry has left for the performance. Blake Lively walked into that gala expecting applause, reverence, maybe even redemption. Instead, she walked straight into the moment where the illusion finally cracked, and everyone watching could feel it for years. Blake has been marketed as this untouchable Hollywood figure, elegant, classy, effortlessly influential. The kind of woman the industry insists is above criticism. But that night made something painfully clear: Hollywood isn't protecting her anymore. In fact, it looked like Hollywood was actively embarrassed by her presence. And the reason wasn't subtle. It wasn't hidden between the lines. It was standing right there under the flashing lights, dressed in couture, smiling too hard, clinging to a narrative that no longer works. At the center of this mess was Blake's latest desperate attempt to recast herself as a victim. Not just a misunderstood celebrity. Not just a woman facing backlash. No, a symbol of survival, trauma, and moral authority. And to sell that image, she didn't rely on facts, accountability, or genuine activism. She relied on something far more disturbing: her mother's trauma. At the Time 100 Gala, Blake Lively turned deeply personal family pain into a public relations tool, parading it on stage and down the red carpet like a shield against criticism. And it backfired in the worst possible way. What made it even more uncomfortable was how calculated it felt. This wasn't an emotional slip. This wasn't a raw, unfiltered moment. This was staged. From the dramatic pauses in her speech, to the trigger warnings, to the careful framing of her story, everything screamed performance. And people noticed. You could see it on their faces. Not admiration. Not empathy. Confusion. Discomfort. Second-hand embarrassment. The kind of reaction you get when someone is clearly oversharing for attention rather than truth. Blake stood there, wrapped in a designer gown worth more than most people's annual salaries, talking about survival and strength, while offering almost nothing of substance. She spoke just enough to evoke sympathy, but not enough to say anything meaningful. She wielded her mother's experience like armor, deflecting criticism while avoiding accountability for her own controversies. It wasn't empowering. It was unsettling, and the irony of it all was impossible to ignore. Here was Blake Lively, positioned by Time magazine as one of the most influential people in the world, placed between Serena Williams and Simone Biles, two women whose influence is rooted in undeniable achievement, resilience, and real struggle. Women who have broken records, endured racism, and changed their fields through talent and discipline. And then there was Blake, whose claim to influence seems to rest entirely on optics, proximity to power, and an endless cycle of carefully managed victimhood. That placement alone should have set off alarm bells. For many viewers, it was the moment Time magazine lost what little credibility it had left. Because no amount of PR can make those comparisons make sense. You don't get to cosplay civil rights credibility because you cried on stage. You don't earn moral authority by association. And yet, there she was, smiling proudly, soaking in the moment as if she belonged there. Meanwhile, the media's response was strangely muted. Outlets that usually pounce on controversy, TMZ included, suddenly seemed hesitant, almost nervous. Instead of questioning the optics, they focused on how stunning Blake looked. How elegant the gown was. How perfect the couple appeared. As if talking about fashion could distract from the obvious discomfort in the room. It felt less like coverage and more like fear of legal consequences, fear of backlash, fear of being dragged into a mess they didn't want any part of. And then there was Ryan Reynolds. For once, he wasn't front and center cracking jokes, playing the lovable everyman. He stayed in the background, watching it all unfold. Watching the narrative they'd built together start to crumble in real time. And for the first time in years, he didn't look amused. He looked trapped. Like a man realizing that the carefully curated empire he helped build was collapsing under the weight of its own dishonesty. The cracks in their polished image were everywhere if you paid attention. Ryan's body language was stiff, anxious. The forced smiles didn't reach his eyes. There was tension, real tension, the kind you can't script away. And when the cameras caught moments of frustration, irritation, even anger, it shattered the illusion of the perfect Hollywood marriage. This wasn't a power couple in control. This was a couple in damage control mode, failing miserably. What made the situation even more absurd was Blake's apparent belief that she was delivering some kind of historic, righteous moment. The way she carried herself, the way she spoke, the way she posed, it was as if she genuinely believed she was channeling the gravity of figures who fought real battles, who sacrificed real things. The comparison wasn't just tone-deaf. It was offensive. Watching her strut across that carpet with the confidence of someone who thinks they've changed the world was surreal. Like watching someone accept an award for a struggle they never lived, and people weren't quiet about it. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Commentators, critics, and even casual viewers started asking the same question: why is she here? What influence does Blake Lively actually have? Beyond magazine covers and curated activism, what has she done that warrants this kind of honor? The answer, for many, was simple: nothing. Or at least nothing that justifies this level of praise. The criticism didn't stop at the gala. It intensified when her speech hit the internet. Once people could watch it without the glamour of the event, the emptiness became impossible to ignore. Megyn Kelly, who rarely softens her words, didn't hold back. She tore into Blake for exploiting her mother's trauma for sympathy, calling the move repulsive and calculated. And while people may disagree with Megyn on many things, this time, her words echoed what countless viewers were already thinking: real survivors don't parade their family's pain like a fashion accessory. They don't use trauma as a branding exercise. And they certainly don't weaponize it to silence criticism. The roast was brutal, and it landed hard. You could feel Blake's dignity evaporating with every clip, every reaction video, every comment calling out the hypocrisy. The red carpet moments only made things worse. Blake posing with her mother, emphasizing the story at every turn, pushing the narrative harder and harder. It didn't feel authentic. It felt desperate. Like someone clinging to sympathy because they know they're losing control of the conversation. And Hollywood noticed. Insiders started whispering, mocking, laughing behind closed doors. The nickname started circulating, not affectionately, not jokingly, but with venom. Plantation Barbie. And no matter how hard her team tried, it stuck. The optics were horrific, especially given Blake's history: the plantation wedding, the staged heritage photo shoots, the repeated pattern of appropriating narratives that aren't hers. Time magazine conveniently ignored all of it, as if history could be erased with a donation or a carefully written profile. But the internet doesn't forget anymore. And this time, neither did the audience in that room. The crowd's reaction during her speech said everything. Frozen smiles. Polite clapping. The kind of applause that feels obligatory, not earned. One woman caught on camera openly cringing became an instant symbol of the collective discomfort. It was the face everyone wanted to make but didn't dare. And that image spread faster than any PR cleanup could contain. By the end of the night, it was clear this wasn't a triumph. It was a turning point. Blake Lively didn't walk away empowered. She walked away exposed. And the fallout was only just beginning. Once the red carpet lights dimmed and the applause died down, what followed wasn't sympathy, it was scrutiny. And this time, the scrutiny didn't just hit Blake. It swallowed Ryan Reynolds whole. While Blake was busy staging her Hallmark-style trauma monologue at the Time 100 Gala, Ryan Reynolds was scheduled to appear the very next day at the Time 100 Creative Summit. On paper, it was supposed to be easy. A friendly stage. A safe crowd. Softball questions. A controlled environment where Ryan could charm his way through and quietly absorb some of the backlash aimed at Blake. Instead, it turned into one of the most uncomfortable public appearances of his career. From the moment he walked on stage, something was off. This wasn't the quick-witted Deadpool persona. This wasn't the effortlessly confident brand builder. He looked exhausted. guarded. Like someone who hadn't slept, hadn't prepared, and hadn't wanted to be there at all. His posture was stiff. His movements were tense. And when questions came up, even the gentle ones, he froze. The interview asked about negative media attention and how it affects business. It was the softest possible version of the elephant in the room. Any seasoned celebrity would have deflected with humor or delivered a polished, neutral answer. Ryan didn't. Instead, he spiraled. He launched into a rambling monologue about identity, borrowing personalities, trying to find himself, stealing traits from people he admired. It sounded less like wisdom and more like confession. In a single moment, Ryan Reynolds, Hollywood's most carefully branded authentic guy, admitted he doesn't actually know who he is. That his personality is a patchwork of other people's traits. That he's been trying on identities like costumes his entire life. And while some might frame that as vulnerability, it didn't land that way. It landed like instability. Like a man cracking under pressure. The audience felt it. You could see it. Forced laughter. Nervous shifting. Silence where punchlines were supposed to land. The interview, whose job was to prop him up, ended up carrying the entire exchange while Ryan unraveled in real time. Watching Hollywood's so-called funniest man get outshined in charisma by a Time magazine host wasn't just awkward. It was a career low, and the worst part? He never mentioned Blake. Not once. Not directly. Not even in passing. It was like she didn't exist. Like saying her name might trigger something he couldn't control. That silence spoke louder than any statement ever could. It wasn't support. It wasn't strategy. It was fear. Online, people noticed immediately. Lip readers claimed he muttered under his breath. Screenshots of his facial expressions flooded social media. The analysis was ruthless. This wasn't a man standing by his partner. This was a man trying to survive the blast radius of her choices. And the internet had absolutely no mercy. The comment sections exploded. Videos of the summit became roast sessions. Fake. Hollow. This guy has been lying for years. For the first time in his career, Ryan Reynolds didn't have a fan army rushing in to defend him. No, leave him alone. No, he's just misunderstood. Nothing. Just wall-to-wall dragging. Even his brand partnerships took a hit. Mint Mobile, the goofy, reliable side hustle he's leaned on for years, quietly disabled comments on multiple ads. Not moderated. Disabled. When a company selling budget phone plans has to shut down interaction because the backlash is too intense, you know the damage is real. This wasn't just gossip anymore. This was brand toxicity, and meanwhile, Blake's situation kept deteriorating. The internet wasn't done with her Time 100 speech, not even close. Clips were dissected frame by frame. People pointed out the contradictions, the vague storytelling, the emotional manipulation. Her speech about her mother, about survival, about abuse, raised more questions than answers. How did hearing a woman on the radio physically save her mother? What actually happened? Why was everything so deliberately unclear? The more people listened, the more it felt like word salad. Emotional cues without substance. Trauma references without accountability. And instead of centering the communities she was supposedly honoring that night, Blake made it about herself. Again. A luxury gown sermon about strength delivered from a place of unimaginable privilege, and then came the pregnancy rumors. It didn't take long for TikTok to notice what looked like a noticeable baby bump under her gown. The timing couldn't have been worse, or more suspicious. Right as the backlash hit peak intensity. Right as her plantation wedding history resurfaced. Right as the fake victim narrative started collapsing. Suddenly, speculation exploded. Was this another strategic distraction? Whether the rumors were true or not almost didn't matter. What mattered was that people no longer trusted her intentions. Commentators immediately connected the dots to past controversies, how pregnancy announcements had conveniently followed previous scandals. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Once is coincidence. Twice is strategy. 3 times is a playbook and the public wasn't buying it anymore. The comments were brutal. A baby bump won't save you. The internet remembers. Stop hiding behind motherhood. Sympathy, once her most reliable shield, was gone. Behind the scenes, the damage was even worse. Reports started circulating that members of their glam squad, longtime stylists, and even PR representatives were quietly distancing themselves. Jumping ship. Looking for exits. When the people paid to protect your image start planning their escape, it's already over. Hollywood insiders began openly mocking them. Not whispering anymore. Calling Blake's appearances at Plantation Barbie redemption tour. Not as a joke, as a warning. She had become radioactive. A liability. The kind of client nobody wants when they're trying to protect their own reputation. Then the allegations resurfaced. Claims that Blake attempted to get close to Justin Baldoni was rejected and allegedly responded by launching accusations that later fell apart under scrutiny. Whether every detail is accurate or not, the optics were disastrous. Every inconsistency weakened her credibility further. And the comparisons people started making were lethal. Amber Heard. That name came up again and again. Not because the situations were identical, but because the damage was. When powerful celebrities weaponize victimhood narratives that don't hold up, real survivors pay the price. Public trust erodes. Skepticism grows. And people stop listening, even when the stories are real. That's why the backlash wasn't just cruel. It was angry. People felt manipulated. Used. Like their empathy had been treated as currency. And Hollywood hates nothing more than being embarrassed publicly for playing along. Taylor Swift's quiet distancing only reinforced the verdict. Her team reportedly shut down any involvement connected to Blake's legal mess. No statements. No appearances. No support. When someone as calculated as Taylor Swift backs away, it's not accidental. It's strategic self-preservation. Even Time magazine couldn't escape the fallout. Critics dragged them relentlessly for placing Blake next to Serena Williams and Simone Biles. For ignoring her history. For confusing influence with access. For selling credibility in exchange for celebrity. Their reputation took a hit, and they earned it. By the time the dust settled, the verdict was clear. Hollywood wasn't just tired of Blake Lively. It was done protecting her. The fake activism. The endless PR stunts. The tragic cosplay of victimhood. None of it worked anymore. And Ryan Reynolds' awkward media tour didn't help. It poured gasoline on the fire. Every appearance made things worse. Every word dug the hole deeper. The couple that once symbolized effortless charm and power now represented something else entirely: exposure. Consequence. The end of the free pass. Blake Lively didn't fall because of one speech or one gala. She fell because people finally stopped pretending. And once that happens in Hollywood, there's no going back. This isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of the fallout. And judging by how fast allies are disappearing, this downfall is only getting started.